there's attributes in the physical world. And we what we did early on is we identified those attributes, and we kind of simplify them down into four key things: the where, the when, the who, and the what. And if you think about whether you're buying a product or a service or attending an event, those attributes exist in the physical world at all times. Where did it occur? When did it occur? Who was there? And then what exactly the product or the event or the service that happened.
Welcome to another amazing episode of the Tech Business Roundtable podcast, brought to you by Equa.tech, the leader in digital marketing for tech companies. We want to first take a moment to thank you for sharing this podcast with your friends and on social media and helping us grow week after week. Meet our host of today's TBR episode, Ryan Davies. Ryan is the Director of Marketing of Equa.tech and is a dynamic leader in driving business transformation through technology. Over to you, Ryan.
Welcome, everyone, to the Tech Business Roundtable podcast show. This is a podcast show dedicated to shining a spotlight on tech innovators, entrepreneurs, founders, and the compelling narratives behind the movements they've established. I'm your host, Ryan Davies, and I'm hosting today's discussion on building tomorrow's tech today insights from Jeremy Blackburn with Jeremy Blackburn. Thanks so much for being here.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me. Nice to be here, Ryan.
I'm really excited to dive into this and kind of go through your founder's journey and, what's made you successful in tech. I know you cover so many different areas. You have such a diverse background. For those who are listening here, Jeremy is the founder and CEO of Black Tech Inc. Technologies, which he founded in 2019 to develop hardware and software applications that utilize the blockchain for commercial applications to, connect physical products and services and make them verifiable and validate a digital token that can be utilized in digital worlds as a functional equivalent. Since the inception, Black Tech Inc. has incubated 15 subsidiaries that fall within Black Ink Tech's truth as a service platform. So I'll kind of get you to explain more on that, but it's a software and hardware platform that's built on the creation of hardware oracles and a software platform for physical world data hardening. And there's a whole bunch of amazing elements to that. And maybe that's a great place for us to jump in, because anything I say would do a disservice to what you've built here. So I'd love you to kind of shine a little bit light kind of on that for us.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. It is a mouthful, as you say, and so to try and be as simplistic as possible, we've developed the Chain It ecosystem, which literally what our vision was we own and operate businesses in the physical world, right? Some people say the real world, the digital world is real as well, so I don't really like using that term. But the physical world, there's transactions every day, whether it's products, services, events, and recognizing that there's this tokenization or this digitization movement. We wanted to build an ecosystem that had the same attributes or properties that exist in the physical world, but in the digital world. The days of where we would all go down to the market and I would buy, sheep from you and apples from somebody else and sell wool, those days are long gone. But, the traditional method of commerce was I knew you, you knew me, often for generations. I would see you, you would see me, you'd see the product, we'd see the service, everything was visible with our eyes. And so as the move to digital commerce has been in a couple of decades now, even more than ever, there's everything is becoming digital. And now we have the advent of AI and machine learning that are going to make it even more difficult to know who you're dealing with. And so, we developed Black Ink Technologies to solve problems in our current businesses that are trying to move into the digital world. And so we did it with our business view of actually what exists in the real, business world today, to meet those challenges and those requirements and those standards, but to do it in the digital realm. And so, Black Ink Tech is we say, everything should be empowered by Chain It. And that literally is the creation of fully functional digital equivalent data records or tokens. They're called tokens because they're minted on a blockchain. And so, we create those fully functional digital equivalent tokens for utilization in the digital world as a true representative of the physical object, event, or service. And so, and they are very industry agnostic. They work, the use cases are broad and wide.
I maybe drill down on that for us a bit there, because I know, we've got a wide audience as well in terms of, industries and backgrounds and what they do. And I know you've been able to, over time continue to expand out to more and more, be able to touch more and more spaces.
Yeah, so data is at the core of almost any business now. I don't know of hardly any business that doesn't use, computers or data. And so if you think about literally any business product or service, there's usually a digital aspect to it, even if it's just, I guess you could exist completely off the grid, but I don't think you'd be able to build a scalable or enterprise level business in that way. You're going to need to use computers, and that's going to mean, digital, data. And so if you look at the core of any transaction, there's attributes in the physical world. And what we did early on is we identified those attributes, and we kind of simplify them down into four key things: the where, the when, the who, and the what. And if you think about whether you're buying a product or a service or attending an event, those attributes exist in the physical world at all times. Where did it occur? When did it occur? Who was there, and then what exactly the product or the event or the service that happened. And so if you look at those four, attribute components and then apply them to pretty much any business, product, service, or event, we collect and validate those attributes, and then we record them on a blockchain so they're permanent or immutable, or they're tamper-proof, or you can tell if somebody tries to alter the data. So we have a permanent data record of those attributes. And then we've built out features that allow things like touch audit. So we say we've literally trademarked trust no one and trust nothing. And so, everybody's about, reimagine trust and, trust reinvented, or the new, form of trust. We said trust no one. And so, and that means us too, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why our platform has some of these very unique, and patented features like touch audit that allows you to literally, validate yourself the attributes of where, when, who, what. So in one of our data records, if you wanted to validate where that occurred, you would literally click or touch on your mobile device the where, and it would display the GPS address. And if you touched it again, it would take you there. And if you think about the relevancy for that, for things like organic produce, right? We're trusting so much in our daily lives, from the food we eat to the clothes we wear, where they were produced, how they were produced, where they were sourced. Trust is a huge part of our lives. And so what we're trying to do is eliminate a lot of that need for trust, because trust is broken and it's taken advantage of. And so when I buy organic, vegetables, and I look at the price of the organic versus the, regular or non-organic vegetables, there's a huge delta or difference there in those prices.
Yeah.
And so would I love to be able to simply pull out my phone, scan a QR code, see a where attribute, touch it, and see, Ryan's organic produce farm, and then further, touch the organic certification and see where, when, who, and what that occurred, and actually see the who on that and be able to touch that and see a government register of employees? I would love that. And that's one of our products, right? So we're providing the transparency of provenance or origin for these data records. These data records exist now. We're just providing the platform or the ecosystem so where they can be recorded in easy to use fashion.
Incredible. I was actually just watching something the other night. It's incredible about that, about the journey of chocolate, and they had all of this stuff about how
Western Africa.
Yeah, it was a oh yeah, no, this is there's child labor proof, and and they're like, so we sent somebody out there, and it took us 4 minutes to find somebody who had children under 11 working on a farm, but they had these certifications on their thing saying guaranteed it's sourced this way. And it was like, oh well. And then of course here comes the PR team going, we were stunned by these allegations and we apologize for breaking trust, right? Like, I mean, what an amazing what a fit that this kind of brings together here, with saying like, hey, look, we can now trace it and follow through with all of this with the groups that you're, the organizations, the companies that you're working with here. This seems like it could be a significant challenge for them to pick up, but at the same time, I know you've made it that successful for so many people to be able to take this journey and do that. So what challenges do you see some of these organizations have out there, and how you've been able to help them overcome them?
Well, it's interesting because I remember a year ago talking to You were commenting about I'm a Yankees fan, you're a Cubs fan. I think we're not embarrassed either of us about that. But we were dealing with some individuals in the sports memorabilia world, and I would say one of the interesting parts of our journey is that it does have to be easy. Um, I understand it, our teams understand it, but when you're producing a product or a service or a platform like this, I remember that we were creating these data records, we were minting tokens off of sports memorabilia. And I was sending the QR codes via email to someone so that they could validate them, right? I'd say, hey, here's the QR code. And so he called me and he's like, so I'm clicking on it and nothing happens. I'm like, well, you use the QR code you use with your phone. He's like, so I got to take my own cell phone? And I'm like going, oh, right. Yeah, you do. So, and so if you think about it from a business, viewpoint, we're sending QR codes and we were very proud that you can text them, you can email them, you can, just like any image, you can send it any number of ways. But then when they received it, then they were having to figure out, okay, if I get it on my phone, now how do I scan it with my phone? Right. And so some of these problems didn't become evident until, it's like, you actually put your product in an end user's hands. Right. And so
Yeah.
we immediately recognized that we needed to make our QR codes, clickable, or, you could touch them and then they would open up the data. So again, you're going back, and look, that's a mistake on our part, right? We recognized after the fact that as great as it is to have embedded, QR code generation, or, it's called unique object identification, QR code being one of many ways that we do that. But when a business receives that, and if you can imagine, you're inside of a large organization, I don't think I can see somebody sitting at their desk, getting an email, pulling out their cell phone, scanning a QR code, getting that information on their phone. Now it's on their phone. How do they get it back to their desktop, right?
Yep.
And so when you're designing products, it's really important to keep in mind who are your ultimate, end users. And in our platform, it's both, individuals and organizations. And so being able to plan those user journeys or those, onboarding sessions and those consumer user stories was very important. And, I would say, look, we missed several. But I don't think that's uncommon. I think that you've got to develop products in an agile format. Everybody in software development knows what I'm talking about. You've got to be very flexible about, being able to change it, because I'm not going to change, corporate America or even individuals sitting at their desk, their mannerisms, where they're going to go through this cumbersome process of pulling out their cell phone, scanning a QR code. Now they've got the information on their phone. And if you're talking about that where attribute, imagine that, you're a lender or a bank and you just got a QR code from my loan closing. And it's like, okay, now I've got exactly, the confirmed digital identities of who closed, where it closed, when it closed, and even our provenance of our closing documents. But now that information's on my phone, right? Now I got to get it back to the computer. Now we're introducing different stops of the data, which actually the integrity of the data now is passing through several hands, which that trust no one is going to become a problem. And so, we definitely learned a lot through our progression. And what I would say is until you actually get it in third-party users' hands, and we were using a lot of our own companies and our own employees to test it. And one thing I learned is that they don't want to tell you what's difficult or hard very quickly unless you push them, because hey, they're telling me to use this, I got to use it because we're an affiliated company. But you really need it in third parties that have no affiliation with you, that'll give you honest feedback, and then you might even have to push them. What could be better? What could be better? About 1,000 times ask them, and then on 999 they finally tell you, yeah, it would really be great if I didn't have to use my phone and I could just stay on my desktop, right? So yeah, lesson learned, and there'll be more, I'm sure.
I think that's incredible. I mean, it's exactly that, right? You got to have some principles that guide your approach towards product development and fostering innovation within your team. Because, like you said, if you don't push them, it's not gonna, it's not necessarily gonna take place. So it's fantastic that you've really been able to embrace that from outside your team. I think a lot of what you do as well. Again, you got to build some really strategic partnerships in both the tech industry and, of course, across the industries that you're working in. So, do you have some advice for our founders that are looking to establish kind of those meaningful collaborations and building strong partnerships?
Yeah, they are absolutely vital, and I think we were fortunate that we had some existing relationships that were easy for us to go to for, POCs and MVP testing. And so, when you're trying to get those and you're literally developing, especially a software product for an industry that you don't have those contacts in, I would make sure you establish those relationships as early as possible, because they're going to guide your journey. One thing that I see, and it's almost cliche, the mistakes that are made when you have, you have very brilliant software developers and programmers, developers, product owners, project managers. But if they don't have industry experience, if they're trying to build a product for an industry that they do not have actual experience for, they're going to make mistakes. It's impossible not to. There's nuances. There's even the vernacular, the words that are used in an industry differ that you might not be used to. Acronyms that you might put into your app or your product or your program might mean an entirely different thing in that industry. And so, as we've, expanded our ecosystem into new industries, we've always tried to make sure that we had, a subject matter, an SME, subject matter expert for that industry that had actually been in that industry, not just knew about it. I might know a lot about baseball. You might know a lot about baseball. We were talking about baseball managers. To think that either one of us could manage a baseball team, even if we've been watching it for decades or even playing it, I think there's a lot to learn, right? And so, which is why most professional sports or even companies, you see people that have been, you don't see somebody that starts at a company, becomes the CEO the next day. There's an experience level. And so I think that that's a very important part of software development, is that when you're developing a product, your users, your customers, you need to have that subject matter expertise, either yourself or in your development teams, or you will absolutely, have mistakes. And so, you go to them as early and often as possible. You hear about this all the time. People trying to establish those first customers, that revenue. There's a lot of emphasis from the investment community on getting that first dollar of revenue in the door. But, I would say more important than that first dollar is the first satisfied customer. Because if you've got one satisfied customer, even if that customer is using your system for free, at least now you've got a product that they want, as opposed to a dollar in the door. And so I often see that emphasis on, that dollar in the door, as they say, is highly emphasized, when I would think that, from our side, we have waited years, literally, to actually start charging for our product. Because, I look at it from the other side. If I was bringing these products into my business, what would I want them to do before I would be willing to pay for them? And so we want to have a product that's not just about, hey, we're generating revenue, but hey, we're providing significant value, measurable ROI to our customers, so that they want to pay for our product, not just use it, that they want to pay for it. And I think that's a big difference in a lot of the ways that companies approach their markets and their customers. It's great to have revenue. It's, I think, better to have satisfied customers that want to pay. And I think that's a completely different journey, as opposed to go get us some sales and go get me some customers that are satisfied with your product. I think that's a better story.
I completely agree, and I think that's a blurred line, a little bit of a loss of focus sometimes. I think it's incredible advice to our listeners to kind of keep that in mind with their journey. You kind of touched on a little bit too about this, having subject matter experts and staying ahead of the curve in this ever evolving tech landscape, and how fast it's, in changing from that standpoint here. How are you able to do that? How are you and your team able to stay adaptable and ready for shifts in technology and market dynamics so well?
There's an old saying that, success is preparation meeting opportunity, right? And so, I think one of the best things about our platform is the ability to identify, frankly, humans, right? We have something called Being ID that, does liveness tests and does geospatial analysis and things like that to determine you are in fact human. And we did that for, validation and verification purposes. But remember, we started our company in 2019, and some of our earliest patents are literally regarding, what now is known as an NFT, but they weren't even really called NFTs back then. And, we called, when we were talking about Being ID and the prevention of, we didn't say AI, we said computer generated models, right? Which would, fake a human presence, right? Or a human, identity. And so we did that years ago. And so the fact that AI has now become so, prevalent, there's no other way to say it. It was luck. I mean, we didn't see this. If we'd have saw this, we'd have invested in, several of these AI, stocks that have gone, up, tens of thousands of percent. So I think there is a factor of being prepared for the opportunity. I remember when I was, younger, computers were just coming out, and the source of knowledge, believe it or not, was encyclopedias, right? I mean, you went to the library and, and if you had encyclopedias in your home, oh my goodness, I mean, how amazing was that? And now it's that information and more is so readily available on the internet. What I can tell you is that, if you worry about the technology that might surpass you or replace you, you're just going to be worrying. I mean, is there something better than you out there? Yes. There's 9+ billion people on the planet. There's a lot of smart people. There's a lot of great ideas and great projects going on. And, I think that, when you say to stay ahead of everybody, I think you just got to focus and do the best you can and be aware of what's going on. You don't want to be ignorant, of developments like AI right now. If you were in certain, software application developments and you're not using AI, then you're falling behind, right? So you want to be aware of what's going on, but I don't think you want to be so conscious of it that that bleeding edge is called the bleeding edge for a reason, because there's a lot of blood out there. And so, I think you want to stick to your idea. You obviously want to do analysis and make sure that you're addressing competition, but the things that you don't know, just like even this week, I had a meeting with someone, and he literally had just sold his company, and he said, thank God that the people we sold our company didn't know about you guys. He's like, you're 3 years ahead of where we're trying to go. And he says, we just sold our company. He said, and I'm like, well, do you have a non-compete? And he's like, no, because he's literally applying for a job. and I said, well, that's very comforting to hear. But, we didn't come out, and start doing a lot of marketing or publicity until we had a really firm foundation. And in our case, we had the fortunate, opportunity to take some time to develop an entire ecosystem. We didn't have to go to market to get that first dollar in the door, because we could take the time to develop a product that would be, that people would want to use. And then we also filed a lot of patents around our products, to protect, a lot of these things that we thought were innovative and that we were coming up with. And I think those offer some protections. Just because you have a patent doesn't mean you're going to be a successful company.
Right.
We have double digit awarded and even double digit, undergoing prosecution right now. They're pending. But that alone doesn't make your company. I see that become an issue sometimes. You see people, they're like, oh, this is patented. Congratulations, that's great. I mean that sincerely. I'm not, it is an accomplishment to have, patents awarded, but they also, you can walk into the bank. So SVB's gone now. They used to do patent loans. I don't know anybody else that does. And so you've got to have customers, you've got to have revenue, and they're a great deterrent to competition, but they're not going to make you successful. So while there's a lot of great advice out there, get the patents, but get those happy customers as fast as you can.
I think that's unbelievably well said. I mean, you've given us so much incredible advice here already, and I love to kind of close off with the past and the future kind of outlook sort of a thing. So maybe, for a learned lesson or things like that, looking back, is there a piece of advice that you wish you had received when you were just starting out as a tech founder? I'm sure there's 100 of them looking back, but maybe something that sticks with you from that perspective.
Well, I founded my first tech company in the 90s. And so it's been a minute, as they say in this part of the world. There's, what you don't know is what you don't know. Yeah. And, even the best plan, you're going to have to be adaptable. You're going to have to be malleable. You're going to have to be able to adjust to what happens. You can put the best development team in place, the best, business plan in place, have all your funding in place, and you're still going to have challenges. And so, early on, there's great advice that I was given, related to business, trust everyone, but brand your cows. That one's going to stick with me forever. And you know, the best advice I think is just understand there will be something go wrong, and when it does go wrong, you just got to adapt to it and you know, be ready to address those challenges. And so, you know, the companies that are successful, you know, before we were starting, you know, people often ask, hey, what do you think made you, you know, successful? And look, I've had challenges, I've had failures. You know, if you're in business long enough, you know, we do a lot of real estate development, literally thousands of projects. Did we make money on every single one? No, nobody does. You're going to have failures over time, but you know, the ability to have grit, you know, to have conscientiousness, I think is the actual word they use, which is just that determination to keep going. I think that is probably the thing that served me the best, is that you know, it would be hard as long as I believe in what our products and our company is doing. You know, you've just got to keep going, and there's going to be challenges. People are going to quit. You know, Blacking Tech. We hired a development team, internal, in the first 3 months. We hired a CTO, paying him very well, you know, mid six figures. Had a contract, hired the team, ready to go. He walked in and said, you know, I'm sorry, but I'm quitting. I'm like, what? And he had gotten an offer for seven figures. And he was very talented, obviously, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, and he's like, I know we got a contract, but, you know, I'm going to find somebody, I'm going to help you out, and don't worry about it. And I'm like, you know, I mean, that right there probably would have killed a lot of companies. I
Yeah.
mean, to have to kind of bear down and say, oh my gosh, I got to do this again. And we've had other things happen similar to that, where we've had setbacks with either development teams or, you know, hardware. You know, as you mentioned at the onset, we do both hardware and software. And there's a reason for that. There's a technical, you know, reason for that, for the data that can be trusted. You know, a trusted computing network is the data that comes off that is much more reliable. You know, we actually grade our data, which is something that I think, well, we patented that. And so, the ability to grade data off of a trusted computing network, that's better than a cell phone or a VPN computer, right? But, you know, when you're doing something new, you're going to have challenges, setbacks, you know, both financial and team members and even, you know, just even customers, you know. I mean, we've had some customers, you know, early on that, you know, seemed like they were very, very energetic. I'm not going to drop names, but even a year ago now, we had spent a lot of time integrating with some of the well-known NFT platforms. Everybody knows their name if you're in this space, right? And along came, you know, the FTX issue and then the SVB issue. There was a new player in that arena that was stripping out the royalties and the smart contracts, and it decimated the market share of the guys that we were dealing with. And I mean, I remember literally week over week, the people that we had been talking to, you know, emails are bouncing back. They're just not there anymore, right?
Yeah.
And those companies or customers were completely shifting their focus to retaining customers instead of new product development. And so, you know, when you talked about choosing, you know, your partners to work with, there's no way they could have saw that coming. I mean, I can't fault them for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have done the same thing, right? You know, you've got to recognize those things are going to happen. So even, you know, with the best plan, you know, you should expect things to go wrong, and then you should have the conscientiousnness to keep going and to stay in there and overcome it, right? Now, that doesn't mean that if I'm manufacturing, you know, horse-drawn carts and everybody's driving a car around, you know, I should stick to my guns and keep, you know, doing horse-drawn carriages, right? You've got to be aware that, you know, you might have been passed, you know. And so I do see that, you know, there's guys that just will not give up, and you're looking at them like, you know, man, you know, you know, I don't see you ever being successful. So you need to be willing to, you know, have that balance of being able to say, yes, I'm here. I understand it's going to be hard, but at the same time, being able to listen to others and say, okay, maybe I should listen. Everybody's telling me this isn't going to work. You know, we all focus on the story where the founder says, you know, 10,000 people told me I was going to fail, and I kept in there and kept going. You know, depending upon who those 10,000 people were, you probably should have stopped. Right? You know, I mean, if I had, you know, the who's who of the tech world, telling me, yeah, your product's outdated, it's never going to work. Me having, all the grit in the world isn't going to make
Right.
us successful. So being able to listen to people, I think, is also important too.
This has been one of the best podcasts in terms of just being able to for people to listen and absorb and get, exactly that insight and maybe, where those challenges and barriers have hit and to see, again, it's more than just grit and determination. It's being able to be adaptable and listen and, adjust and adapt to both the markets and who you're with and who you're partnered with, everything. Unbelievable. I can't thank you enough. I want to ask though, before we kind of switch off here is, where do you see the future heading a little bit? Covered a little bit about the past there and a vision where, where Black Ink Tech is evolving to meet those challenges and opportunities.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is actually probably the most and developing an eco much every feature and functionality that I would want from a business perspective. It's scalable. It's got all the ability for an existing business enterprise to ingest data from our platform, so you're not having to replace their existing software system. So we're literally right now where hopefully the fun starts, right? Lots of work and effort, which can also be rewarding in the development of the product, but now we get to start actually seeing consumers and customers start to use it, see the advantages and the benefits. And so where that's going to take us, there's lots of opportunities that we're evaluating now, different industries, different, it's exciting, right? Technology is ever evolving, as they say. Where I see the biggest challenges for us is that, I think that, AI is now well known. Blockchain was a new concept a decade ago. I think that the businesses that don't adopt, blockchain, which is different than cryptocurrency, which is a part of the blockchain world. But, blockchain is about immutable or permanent data. I mean, that's the value to me, and I think to most businesses, is that the data on a blockchain is permanent. And there's a lot of ways to utilize that because you don't have to trust it, right? You know that this is what happened. It can't be altered. It can't be changed without detection. And so I think that is becoming very quickly mainstream in all business, and that will, actually come into all of our lives, even to our personal life. Everything I think will be recorded on a blockchain or an immutable ledger, which could be quantum as well. But at the same time, I think that AI, in the last year has just exploded, and I expect that it will continue to evolve and explode and be adapted to almost all, I don't want to say every, aspect of our lives, but, it will. I mean, decisions that we make that take us a tremendous amount of time and evaluation to make, if those large language, if those databases have that information, they can make that decision very quickly. I'm not any way saying they're going to replace humans. I think they can get to the point where we have to be very careful with what controls we allow computers and especially AI to control business processes and parts of our especially our infrastructure systems. So there needs to be caution and regulation and government, and that's what it's there for. But beyond that, the thing I'm the most excited about, which is going to be even a larger, I think, change than even AI, which will be quantum. The speed that quantum can calculate, there's so many more things that are possible. Growing up when I did, dating myself, but things that on Star Trek in the 70s and 80s where they're talking on their wrists, it happens today, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's just common and it's normal, and with quantum, teleportation, things even beyond that are possible. And so, the ability to create, individual, pharmaceutical treatments, the ability for the speed at which quantum can compute and complete calculations powered with AI, that really could bring about just, a tremendous amount of change. And so how do we protect ourselves against it? We're not in quantum computing. We're there to harden data. So, I think that our platform works, whether it's blockchain or quantum. But again, going back to what I said earlier, the ability to be agile and to adapt to challenges, is literally all you can do. You have to be, have the knowledge and stay up on world events. I mean, I don't know anybody that's been successful for a long period of time that wasn't continually educating themselves. Education or knowledge is a lifelong pursuit of mine, and I think should be of everybody. And so, things do change. They change quicker now than ever. So just, being aware of what's going on and being ready to address those challenges when they occur, I think that's all you can do. I don't think you can plan for it more than that.
I think it's just wonderful. Again, incredible advice. I know other episodes we've done, so encourage, of course, if our listeners haven't, to go back and listen. But we've talked about, again, that idea of the blockchain being, it's not crypto, right? It's so much more in terms of what you can protect and what you can do. And we've talked about that for even things like, again, art and collectibles and podcasts and things like that, to be able to protect IP, protect things that aren't traditionally, again, in a digital sense, that are still have some physical element and aspect to it, and how to do that. So I think this is incredible. I can't thank you enough for this chat here, Jeremy. What I'd love to do is just sort of give you a chance here as well to let people know how we can get in touch with you and learn more, pick your brain a little more, and certainly for your services and everything you do, be able to connect with Black Ink Tech.
Yeah, no, I mean, blackinctech.io, our ecosystem is called Chainit or Chainit, so chainit.com, our emails, phone numbers, everything's on there. I'm on LinkedIn, respond probably pretty readily to that. So, that's monitored, pretty constant. So, happy to interact with anyone. I think that one of the positive things comes out of experiences like this is that, you are able to reach people that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to connect with. And so I'm always, looking forward to who reaches out. I can't see who's watching this. You can see me. So you reach out to me, then that's how that interaction starts. And it's led to amazing, opportunities, not just with, Black Ink Tech, but other businesses. Like I mentioned at the onset, we own and operate other businesses. And so a lot of our best relationships and connections have come from, whether it was speaking events or, podcasts, things like this, where somebody saw it, reached out, and, we've got customers now that are in different continents, different countries, different parts of even, the US or North America, that I don't know how we'd have ever connected otherwise. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. And again, I have had some success. I've had failures as well. And I think that's pretty much the story of any founder or entrepreneur. And just keeping up and keeping going. So I appreciate the opportunity of been able to talk to you today.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you so much. So I want to take a minute again to thank Jeremy Blackburn for this incredible, amazing podcast, Building Tomorrow's Tech Today, Insights from Jeremy Blackburn. And I want to thank our listeners as well. We can't do what we do without you. So until we meet again with another amazing TBR episode, maybe hard to live up to this one, but Jeremy, thank you again. I'm your host, Ryan Davies. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Ryan, for this amazing episode. Thank you for joining us on the Tech Business Roundtable podcast. We hope our discussions have sparked new ideas, expanded your knowledge, and empowered you on your entrepreneurial journey. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and write us a positive review. Thank you for listening to the Tech Business Roundtable podcast show.